Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Here on the Sheenapreneur channel, I share information about government contracting, veteran business content, and other business tips. What's going on, everyone? It is Sheena, aka Sheenapreneur, your favorite veteran. And I have a very special guest on. Look, I trust her with my money. That's how deep this relationship is, okay? Miss Janelle just got sent from the heavens to me and my company, both of my companies, a couple of years ago, and she has made sure your girl's trying to stay straight. And she's like the mama figure, the money mama figure, and all of that. And she's just a fantastic woman. Like I said, I trust her with my money. She's a very professional accountant, and I don't get the names correctly when it comes to accounting. So, but you're going to explain that. So, want to introduce one of my favorite people in the world, Miss Janelle Miley. Please introduce yourself, ma'am.
Oh, great. Well, Sheena, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm excited to be on the show and then talk some government contracting. That's for sure. So I am the owner and CEO of Global Strategies, your virtual bookkeeper. And we have been in business for almost 15 years now. We specialize in working with government contractors. That is our specialty. And all of our accountants are extremely talented, but we hire accountants that specialize in certain areas. So, but not only do we handle government contracting, but also nonprofit accounting, service-based businesses, construction, real estate investors. So there's a wide range of businesses that we support, but the main one, government contractors, that's our passion.
I love it. I love it. And that was something that she told me when I said, look, I'm a challenging client. Okay. And she was like, no problem. I was like, oh, I love her already. But like one of the things that you said when we first started talking was if the accountant doesn't specialize in government contracting, and that is your main bread and butter, to run for the hills. That's and that right. is so accurate because, I've gone through several things throughout this process. And you were like, look, this is how you fix da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was specifically related to government contracting. And another person wouldn't necessarily know what to do when you're trying to help me through business strategies. So I love it. I love it. So tell us what your credentials are, because like I said, I don't really know the differences between each one.
Okay. So I have, of course, I went to school for an accounting degree. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. And then I also have an executive MBA degree. I have several certifications in several CFR classes. So that's one of the acronyms we'll may go over, but for the rules and regulations and so forth. So I've taken classes to get certified in those as well. Our team is, like I said, we don't hire anyone who has less than a bachelor's degree in accounting. So they either have a bachelor's, master's, CPA, or a PhD, or a combination thereof. So when we say that we know what we're doing, we not only understand government contracting, but we have the education behind the accounting and the knowledge to support our position and how we present financials and how we just actually manage the books. That's why when I say that we specialize, we specialize.
And I love that you've even said, like, if it's not really within you all's wheelhouse, you're not doing it. And so, right. and I really appreciate that, because I harp on that even when I tell people about government contracting to stop throwing stuff up against the wall, because there's riches in the niches. And
that's
so
right.
On something that's really important, that you could just be the best at that or best at a couple of things. And that's really, really important to me. So I want to give a couple of shout outs to those who are in here. There's a lot of y'all in here. Y'all trying to get your money right before 2025. I love it. Hello, Yolanda. Hello, GovConNOW student Shonda, always a supporter of the channel. She said pen and paper ready. And hello again. She said hello to Miss Janelle, and hello, Christy. What's going on? That's my battle buddy. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into it, right? So when it comes to government contracting, we know that there are certain, I guess, regulations, platforms, compliances that you have to have, especially when it comes to like the software that we use to manage our money. So some people will say you can't use QuickBooks, you can't use da 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 da. And we did a video before, but I want to be like extra clear, especially with
Mhm.
those who are here on live. Like, what are some of the softwares? Maybe rank them from best to not so great, or most expensive to least expensive, or the ones that you guys use the most to the least that you use, like that.
Okay, that's a good
Any-
question. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good question because it's not the software. It's actually how it is set up to capture the data. I have heard from DCAA auditors who have said QuickBooks is fine. Then I've heard from DCAA auditors who say QuickBooks is not fine. The bottom line is it's your infrastructure has to be set up correctly so that it is compliant with government accounting standards, government contracting accounting standards. So it's all involved in your software. QuickBooks is fine. It is the most affordable out of all of the softwares that are out there, but you have to have someone who understands how to use QuickBooks, use all aspects of QuickBooks, because there are a lot of bells and whistles that are available on QuickBooks Online, but you have to know how to use it to make sure it's capturing all of your contract data correctly. That's the most important thing. But even more so, that your accountant is speaking with you and understands the direction your business is going in and what types of contracts you're going after, because that will dictate how your infrastructure is set up.
Got it. So we can't just like let the QuickBooks determine what what it needs to do. Just don't let QuickBooks do it. We got to get somebody to actually build it. I thought QuickBooks was like an all-in-one. You just
Sheena, I have heard that when I hear someone on the phone say, "Yeah, I don't need an accountant. I got QuickBooks. It does everything." I immediately know it's a mess.
Ooh.
100%. I know it's a mess. So when I hear that already says, okay, I got to increase their fees.
Wow, because you're gonna have to do that. What did you call it? Like
Clean
when you
up.
go back, clean up. That
Yes.
word gives me PTSD. That's why I couldn't remember what it was. I'm like, oh Lord, how much, Janelle? But look, that's the thing. Like, this is all about keeping the money in your pocket, right? What's the point of making the money if you can't keep it?
That's exactly right.
So if you do it right the first time, even when it comes to, getting an accountant right at the beginning, and I said this in the other video too, getting an accountant right in the beginning, setting it up properly. So when that money starts coming in, it's filtering where it needs to filter instead of trying to go back a year and remember. After you start making a lot of money, it might sound crazy, but you won't know where that $1,000 went to sometimes if it's not categorized.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Forget the $5 and $10 that are coming in and out of your account, right? So, okay, great. So let me just shout out a couple more people. Shout out to my bestie Alvarez. Hey, girl. And thank you so much. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We went to a little gala or whatever. Had my little outfit on. Okay, so Christy's asking, does Miss Janelle offer accounting services for nonprofits? That's exactly what you said at the beginning.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So yes. All right. So, like, what are some of the financial reports that people need to always have readily available? Like, even let's just say they really truly can't afford an accountant yet. What are some of the reports that they're going to need to have readily available just to do business, or maybe get, loans and certifications and that type of thing?
Okay, so that's kind of a catch-22.
Okay.
I'm going to always say you need to have the accounting service in place, whether you're doing it or you have somebody else that's managing your QuickBooks account. And I'm always going to speak to QuickBooks because some folks will use Excel and or put it on note paper or whatever. That's fine, but the government is entrusting you with their money, and they are entrusting you to perform. Not only do you have to perform, but you have to be able to report. And that's what people miss, because there can be some very stringent reporting requirements. And if you don't have your data in the system the correct way, you're not going to be able to have reports generated to actually give them the reporting that's needed. And that's something that you have to remember. I want to just jump back for a hot second. There are other systems that are out there. There's Uninet. that is out there. These are, and there are many others, robust platforms that start at around $200,000, $500,000. And yes, and
for the life or or just
these are lease payments you would have to pay. You cannot buy a system anymore. Those days are gone.
Oh,
okay. That's gone. It's all subscription based. The more robust platforms are really needed for the type of work. For instance, if you have cost plus type of contracts, percentage of completion types of contracts, those type of contracts, there are certain reports that have to be generated when you have that kind of contract. QuickBooks does not do that automatically. It's something that would have to be done manually, or you can get an add-on system and customize it so that it will generate the types of reports that are needed. Now, all of that is to say is that they are very complicated systems. If I'm saying they're complicated for us,
right, for the whole team, right?
Yes, the whole team. Then for someone who's not an accountant, it would be even more of a challenge. So QuickBooks is definitely the system that you want to go with to start with, and to capture your data. Now, in terms of reporting that you're going to need, the types of reports that you really need to have and be able to generate is your P&L, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, very straightforward. All of your balance sheet accounts on one sheet of paper, your profit and loss on another report. Those are really critical. And most folks think that your profit and loss is the most important statement. It's also your balance sheet. But your accountant, your accountant is the one who's going to make sure that those balance sheet balances are correct and accurate, because the bank, any kind of financial institution, they're going to comb through not only your P&L, but they're going to comb through your balance sheet and ask questions about it. So if there's some crazy stuff on there, they're going to be like, hey, who's doing your bookkeeping? Or if they see a bunch of balances going the wrong way, like a whole bunch of negative balances on your cash accounts, who's doing your bookkeeping? That's what you're going to hear, because they're going to know that you don't understand your financial statements.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there, because I want to go back. But before I do that, now, is it safe to say that if I'm just kind of throwing this out there, because I know everyone may not even have any accounting system at all, so they may not necessarily know what the P&L looks like and the balance sheet looks like. Like, I can picture it right now because I had to pull one up today. But like, if you're getting audited or anything like that, and they see that there's a significant difference with the balance sheet and the P&L, is it safe to say that that could be a significant problem and raise a lot of red flags? Or they're usually going to be kind of balancing off of each other, those two reports? Does that question make sense? Like, so, if they should, it looks like it's been altered. Like, is that possible? Or usually those reports are always going to feed off of one another?
The reports feed off of one another. There's one item on your balance sheet in your equity section that will say it should be the same amount, the same total of your P&L.
Ah, there we go. So you knew what I meant. Okay, I understand that. And so something that you said to me, going back to the last statement you said, where you have a bunch of negative balances and someone's going to see, whoever the professional that's looking at it, whether it's an auditor or a bank, will see that it looks a little sus, then they'll know that you're not doing your own books, and also that you have not hired an accountant, and so you probably are not getting bank loans because of this. It could look like you're making all this money, but then things are not categorized in the right way or the right place, and so then the banks will know that they don't know what they're doing, or they don't have a professional accountant.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We hear from bankers all the time that will say that, oh yeah, their books are in bad shape, but they aren't going to say that to the customer.
Wow.
You just get denied.
Woo! And you're like, I wonder why. I don't know what happened. And that's what it is.
That's exactly right.
Dang. Okay. So can you create a really robust Excel sheet or use like Power BI or something where you can just make it, like create all the formulas and using a spreadsheet instead?
Okay, so let's take a step back. Government contractor, meaning you're getting funding from the federal, state, or local government. They are trusting you to not only perform, but to manage the money appropriately. So you have to have an accounting system in place. So I don't even want to go toward doing something manual because eventually, and this is what I tell all folks that are going into government contracting, eventually there is going to be a question on one form that says, do you have a electronic accounting system?
Yeah. Fair. Look, no problem.
And then they'll ask, that's right. And then they'll ask, what system? And you say, Excel. Bam.
Wow. Wow. You get thrown to the wolves.
You lose the contract. You will not get the contract.
Oh, even before you get it.
Exactly.
Before they award it. Yikes. Okay. Well, y'all heard it from the expert. She's been doing this for a long time, y'all. So she's telling you straight up, you may not even know why. And they're telling, they're saying this behind those closed doors. So I want to go back to DCAA because we didn't really explain that. So what is DCAA compliance?
So that's defense. If you have a defense contract, like with the Army or any military branch, Navy, it could be Coast Guard even. DCAA is another department, and they make sure that your accounting system is in compliance with their standards, meaning that when you have an accounting system set up, you should be able to generate information that cannot be manipulated any kind of way. So what does that mean? That means, okay, I have, I'm doing my invoicing, but I'm not going to do it through QuickBooks. I'm just going to do it in Excel, and I'm going to then key it into the system. Right there in that process are manual steps that are being done, as opposed to it all being created and generated in the QuickBooks system. You're not doing a journal entry to put your sales in. You're going into QuickBooks, the accounts receivable module, and you have customers set up in your database, and you can generate the invoice electronically. You see what I'm saying? So it gets even more complicated when you're talking about payroll. Now, the large contracts that are valued at maybe, $50 million over a 4-year period or $30 million over a 4-year period, and you have and it's a defense contract, some sort of defense contract, you are automatically going to be asked that question. And they will even send you I think it's a SF 1403 or SF 1405. One of those numbers, don't quote me on that, but it's a preliminary audit of your systems where there are a bunch of questions that have to be answered to determine if you are DCAA compliant.
Got it.
So like I said, payroll is even more complicated because you have to be able to set up systems. If you're using QuickBooks and you're not using QuickBooks payroll, you're using an outside payroll provider, you have to be able to run your payroll through your outside payroll provider. Your outside payroll provider has to have some kind of link to your QuickBooks, and it automatically downloads that information, meaning you're not creating a journal entry to record your payroll. So it has to be a process that there's no human intervention of entering data.
I see. Okay, so for those who that went over your head, that basically is like a lot of people will say, well, what do you want your statements to say? Like more on the tax side, but like, what do you want it to say to see if you lost, to show that you lost money in your business and that type of thing? Or like you want to manipulate the numbers, as she stated, to show a certain thing, but you can't do that when you play with the government money. The government, okay, the government money, you can't do that. And you said yes, and you said payroll, and that immediately made me break out to sweat. So going in, so you mentioned QuickBooks a lot. So I'm assuming that's probably one of the, for as a consumer, as a business owner, yes, it's very easy. The payroll is not as easy as ADP was, but ADP don't care anything about small businesses. I said it, and I don't care. But what are some of your favorite payroll systems? Because I forgot that's a part of accounting too.
Yes. Well, we support all payrolls providers, period.
Okay.
ADP is the best. I'm going to tell you right off the bat. They have their issues, but
just like they all do, yeah.
Just like they all do. That's exactly right. But you don't want to talk to the person that answers the phone. That's not the person you want to talk to when you call your payroll provider. You want the expert that's sitting in the back office and has their own office out overlooking the park. That's the person you want to talk to.
And
because they have the expertise, and that's who you want to have the relationship with to help you through payroll issues.
Oh, that's a nugget right there, boy. I need some claps for that, because that's something I can do a whole video about ADP, and it wasn't their fault necessarily, but the reaction that I got was what was traumatic. But okay, so ADP the best. We personally use QuickBooks for payroll. And then for invoicing, we use QuickBooks as well. I used to use Wave before. Wave was a tricky, so I ended up not using them at all. But then there's other ones that I guess just pop up all over. Gusto, I've heard about. But so I'm assuming like your ADP for payroll is pretty much your favorite, and then quote unquote favorite, and then the other one would be QuickBooks for like invoicing.
So we are we're proficient in all of the ADP products. So our team they're experts in the different payroll products that are out there. Run is your lower end product, which we use as a company. We use Run, and it's straightforward. And then there is Workforce Now, and there are a couple others too. So we have expertise in that. I don't encourage business owners to use those higher level platforms because they are more difficult, and you really should have an accountant who's managing those and understands them. But there are other ones like Gusto, Paychecks, and then you have the small ma-pa type of like someone said, you know what, I'm going to start a payroll company. You have those. Stay away from those. Okay, stay away from those, because if you are having somebody remitting your payroll taxes, you don't want them taking your money and using your money elsewhere. You want them remitting your money or holding on to your money until the last moment. You want a provider that will remit your payroll taxes that your employees paid in, the employer matching has been paid. You want that remitted immediately, not in a month, not at the end of the quarter, and they're sitting on your money. You want them to take that money from payroll and send it off, because you don't want to play with the IRS. They will come after you like a dog with a bone.
Yes, they will, Lord. Write out your account. So, okay. So you're saying that with some of the smaller companies, they will like use your money, kind of like how the bank uses your money for other things in the interim, and then when they get it back, then they do what they need to do for your particular business.
There is a real possibility because it's a small company,
right? Just like we are. So it's like they're gonna do like they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well.
Go with an established payroll provider and talk to your accountant, because they can give you insight. you know what, there's this problem that I have with the same type of company you have, that they were not supportive. Their customer service was bad. The customer service is key. That's what you want to look at in any
Amen.
payroll provider.
No, that's very, very true. Okay, so kind of going on to some of the things that I know I still need a little bit help understanding. What are the indirect costs and cost allocations in government contracting? Like, what are some of the things that people need to get, understand how to price? Because pricing comes up at least 5 times a day in my DMs. People ask me all the time. And I always admit that pricing killed me for the first 2 years of doing my company. So there's some things that we just know you have to pay for when you're working out your costs, whether it's a service or product. Can you kind of elaborate on either or both of those?
Sure. Your for government contracting, your costs are broken up into groups. Your first group are your direct costs. These are all of the costs that are incurred to actually do the work. So if you have a cleaning company, it's the labor, it's the uniforms, it's the products. Those are all direct costs to the contract. And then underneath your direct costs are your indirect costs. Your indirect costs include your G&A, general and administration, like your office supplies, your electricity, maybe, your gas.
Executive staff? Okay.
Yeah, your administrative staff. Your administrative staff falls in there too. And a part of your cost as the owner, your wages. Notice I said part, because there's also your overhead account. So you have your indirect costs. Under your indirect costs, you have your fringe, which are all your benefits, your taxes, employer taxes, that sort of thing. That's your fringe. And also your health insurance, your dental insurance, your life insurance. All of that is called your fringe bucket. And you always want to know what your fringe rate is running.
Okay.
Because you want to add that fringe rate to your proposal. Because some proposals will have, there'll be a template and it'll have on their fringe rate. What is your fringe rate running? Is it running 15%, 20%, 30%, 40, 50%? If it's that high, there's a problem there. You may be organizing your books incorrectly, but we could help you with that. So you have your fringe, and then you have your G&A labor, and then you have all of your overhead. Now, all of these are called indirect rates. So all of these indirect buckets of G&A is indirect. The fringe is under indirect. Your overhead is under indirect costs. All of those are buckets that you have to understand what the percentage of what the revenue you generate. Well, what percentage of that is fringe?
Right. That's what I want to know.
Right. What percentage of the revenue you're generating is G&A? Is your G&A 40, 50%? If you put 40, 50% for your G&A anywhere on anything, you will not get the contract. It's too high. G&A for a government contractor, small government contractor, shouldn't be no more than like 10%. Maybe 15, we pushing it.
We can't just get a whole bunch of contracts and just like it'll all balance out. I'm being real.
Well, G&A gets big when you hire a bunch of folks that are not working on a contract.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to say it. That's true.
They're just costing you money.
So what's a good what's a good percent, I guess? You said 10%?
For a small company, try to keep it below 15%.
Yeah.
10 ideally. Because that means you're operating lean and mean.
And that means you gotta work.
Yes.
That means you gotta work, because if you got one employee, it's gonna be you and them. Well, two of y'all. So that's a very important thing for people to know, because everybody thinks they can just, let the contract go and then they just sit back, send invoices, and collect checks. And as you really get into this, it because you need to scale. When you start to scale, you need to implement a lot of different things. So let me comment on a couple of these things. So Neo says, shout out to Neo. Thank you for the gemstone. GNA for small business less than 50%, 15%. Correct. Yes. This is great information. So make sure y'all do a screenshot of this if you're watching this on your phone for the replay. And then Hedda said, where does ongoing training fall under? Good question.
GNA.
It's GNA. So what? So that,
now,
but damn. So now we talk about more percentage.
Yes. So think about it first, because as a government contractor, the first thing you want to think about, is this a cost that is eligible under the contract? Because a contract that you have may have training in it, depending on the type of contract. So now that's a direct cost. That doesn't go part of it. That's not part of your GNA.
You can bill it. You can bill it back. Now we're talking. Charging the government. Amen. Yes, we got to get to that rapido, because I need that for me. Okay, that's really good. So I wanted to ask, also going back to fringe. So in my mind, I'm thinking about some of the federal, because I do federal, local, and corporate. So really, it's only really pertaining to the federal side for the most part when I look at my contracts, because they'll include the wage determination and then show the fringe benefits where it's like I forgot, like the not safe pay. I'm thinking about military stuff, but it's like hazard pay or something, and then what is it called? Those two things that they use.
Yeah, in fringe, depending on the type of contract, there may be an HSA clause. HSA clause means that you have to pay your people at a certain rate. Now, this term is used in different types of situations or different types of contracts, and it's a different term, that they mandate. Some cities will mandate that, prevailing wage rates.
Prevailing wage. Yep.
Okay, so that's another term. So the SCA is the Department of Navy uses SCA wages all the time. And that means you have to pay them a certain dollar amount. You have to give them a certain dollar amount or percentage in benefits. And if you don't, and they say, I don't need those benefits, you got to pay it out to them anyways.
Wow. That I didn't know.
Yes, you have to pay it anyways. You're required. It has to be in their paycheck.
Damn. Okay. I didn't know. I guess I never really had that issue. We'll talk about that offline. Okay. So, all right. That's really, really good to know.
And they will audit it.
You said like the Navy specifically. Wow. Our contract was a laundry contract, so luckily I didn't have to really deal with that, because I hadn't heard of that before. Okay, so as far as like we talked about DCAA compliance, so we don't need to really dig into that. So the end of the year, right? We're mid-December. What are some of the things that people can do? Like, they've been messing up all year. They haven't hired an accountant. They barely looking at their books. They're barely keeping track, and they're like, "Hey, I'm getting QuickBooks after this call because I'm convinced now. And then I'm going to call Janelle at the beginning of the year and start fresh. But today I'm getting QuickBooks and I'm trying to undo the damage." What are some of the things that they can do today?
I can't tell you how many people.
All the thousands of things they need to do. Let's list them.
How many people call and say exactly what you said? Exactly.
Woo, and you're
all like, the time. Okay, so let's unpack that one.
I already knew I was in trouble when I said it. Yes, ma'am.
That was a lot there. Okay, so let me see. I don't even know where to start. It's so much.
Sorry.
Okay.
The quick things.
Okay. So end of the year, the best thing is to get your accounting set up. That's number one. If you don't have it, get it set up. But more importantly, even if it's not the end of the year, make sure you are not using that business bank account you have set up, that you are not running personal transactions through it.
Amen.
That is number one. Set up that bank account and only run business transactions. I know as a new business owner, you don't have credit yet, so you don't have a credit card in the name of the business, that sort of thing. Fine. Set aside one personal credit card for business only. Just one.
Okay.
And put everything through that credit card. That is what I recommend before it gets to the end of the year. Make sure that you do that. That is probably the biggest, most important tip I can give anyone.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So end of the year, folks who are been in business, they have that single bank account, that single credit card, because they listened to the podcast and they said, I'm going to take her advice. So now they're coming to me and they say, okay, what do I do now? Well, you have to have all of your bank accounts reconciled. And what do I mean by that? That means that every month you go into QuickBooks and you check off everything that cleared. You make sure that it's going into the right bucket. It's assigned to the right name, vendor or customer name. You're making sure that that's done. Because if that's not done, then more than likely your books either have too much revenue in it or not enough. And what do I mean by that? So someone runs you, say, oh, you know what? I didn't need an accountant. I did this myself. It's all done. I'm good to go. I'm saving that money. I ain't going to pay Janelle. So take it to your accountant and they're like, wow, you made $500,000 this year. And they're like, well, my bank account says negative $1,000. I don't think I did. Did I? Well, that's what it has on here. Well, that's because you doubled your entries for revenue in the books. Now, do you really want to pay taxes on money you never received?
Ooh, Lord have mercy, because they're going to come and get it. Okay, what you reported, they coming to get it.
That's exactly right. Because they said, and we have clients that'll come to us. There's IRS is saying I owe $40,000. I don't owe $40,000. We look at the books and we see that revenue is overstated. We can tell in like 30 seconds if it's overstated. Overstated meaning it's too much revenue in there.
Wow.
So that's one of the things you want to make sure your revenue is correct in there and you have captured all of your expenses. Remember, we all got a cell phone and we all use it for business. I can't tell you how many clients will come to us and they're not writing that off as a business expense. Just the cell phone bill.
Damn. Yeah. So cell phone, that's definitely one.
There are other things too. Yes, there's tons of other things that you don't even think about. How about you're going to a meeting? You're going to Atlanta, Georgia to meet with Sheena, and you're going to have dinner there, and you have this PowerPoint. You want to present it to her. You want to run it back. You want to show her how you've been doing so great. That is a meeting expense, not meals. Meeting expense. If you put it to meals, you only get 50% deduction.
Right. Meeting. Somebody put that in the chat.
That's a meeting expense. So take a picture of that receipt. But before you take that receipt, you take that picture, you write on the receipt, meeting with Sheena, discuss PowerPoint, discuss my consulting, showed her where I'm at, blah, 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 blah. Take a picture of it, send it to your accountant, or take a picture of it and make sure it gets entered into QuickBooks, because QuickBooks now you can set it up that when you upload that picture, it'll automatically put it where it needs to go up to a point, because you still got to go in and make sure it did what it was supposed to do.
Daggone, to see, look, that's stuff that I didn't even know. Well, maybe I forgot. I'm sure they told me. Meeting expense.
I told you.
I'm sure y'all told me. I'm not
you're good.
I'm not good. Forgive me. Put meeting expense in the chat, because that is really, really great information. And that's helpful, because I mean, we be going around to these meetings everywhere. We be all over Atlanta, especially Atlanta. Y'all the most meetingest, eventingest people ever. And so y'all need to be writing some of this stuff off. And I have had people meet me for lunch with a PowerPoint presentation. That is a real, those are happened a few times. So definitely, okay, I want y'all to make sure you're retaining your money, okay? So what it had to say, yes, meeting expense to meet with Sheena, correct. That's right, because I'm gonna do the same, all right? And so thank you, Nightway, always a supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. So okay. Oh, she said had to say that's a meeting expense as well. So with that being said, can you just fire off maybe just a couple of things that besides that we can write off as well, just for, that we may not know?
Okay.
We know about our room, a room in our house.
Okay. Yeah. The room in your house that's one you got to be careful.
Okay.
Because that's a red flag for the IRS.
Okay. Good to know.
When you start writing off like a part of your rent or a part of your mortgage for your office. Home office expense is a legitimate expense, but it's also one that is scrutinized really highly. One of the ways to kind of get around that is to, for instance, you have to pay electricity someplace, right, for your home. How about a portion of that being written off as a business expense? Let's see, you have I'm just trying to think of, you're buying furniture for your home office. That's a legitimate business expense.
I've seen that. Yes.
Okay. Save the receipts. Now, you also have to think about how much that furniture is going to be. If that furniture is like $1,000, $2,000, something like that.
Getting that oak table, what? Solid oak.
You can. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. But it's not an expense at that point. It's now an asset, which goes on your balance sheet.
That's right.
Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, you get a little $5 chair. Yeah, that's an expense. You get a $2,000 chair. That's an asset that's going on your books. Now, to make it a little bit more confusing, if your business is involved in buying very expensive equipment for your business in order to operate it, like dump trucks and that sort of thing, cleaning machines, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, well, you might have your depreciation threshold. That's a term that's always used in accounting. And what that means is, anytime I buy something over $1,000, it's depreciated. It goes onto the balance sheet as an asset.
Okay.
If it's under 1,000, then I know I can write it as an expense. But if you are buying things that are 50, 100,000, then your depreciation threshold might be $20,000. It depends on your business. So it depends on your business. So for regular government contractors getting started, threshold is always $500. That's the standard that we use, because you really don't have the money to buy expensive stuff.
Facts. Got it. Okay. Well, let's say we got money elsewhere.
You have money elsewhere, but if your business doesn't dictate it, it doesn't say that you got to buy a $500,000 piece of equipment for your business.
Right. Then we don't even need to get into it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then some of that stuff can be used, like we can bill it back, right? Well, depend. I'm sure that's there's a thin line there where it's like you're supposed to have it before you even go after the opportunity, right? Or if you get it, then that's a part of your business and not a part of that contract. I think I answered my own question.
Oh, no, but you brought up a good statement, Sheena. Department of Education, they give out contracts, not give out, but they award contracts, and they award grants. So in some of those contracts I've seen, you're responsible. Let's just say you want a DOE contract, and it says that you are responsible for buying 100 laptops for the schools.
Hmm.
Those 100 laptops belong to the government. And let's just say the program, you decide to quit the business, you got the 100,000, those laptops are not yours. They belong to the government and they go back to the government. They are not sitting on your balance sheet because you do not own them.
They bought it from you.
Right. You bought the laptops for
Right.
these schools, but with their money, but you never gave it to the schools. And you decided, oh, you know what? I'm just going to quit this. I'm not doing this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Take laptops and do something else with it. No, the government owns that equipment. You got to give it back.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. The government, yeah, don't do that. Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm sure you've seen, because I want to hear some of these crazy stories because I know there's a lot of them. So let me get to a couple of the questions from the chat. Can you write off rent expenses if you work from home?
Not the full amount. Not the full amount. If you do that, you will definitely. It's just a matter of time before you get audited. That is one of the things that they look for. So you can rent off. You can say that, because what you have to do is a mathematical calculation on your home office and determine how much square footage are you using for your office as compared to the rest of the house. And then you have to do the formula to figure out, okay, I pay $1,500 a month. I have X number of square footage for the office. You got to do the math to figure out the dollar value of your office and use that as your rent expense. Okay, does that make sense?
I think so. And then she's adding more. Write off monthly rent expense. What else can be written off if you are a home service business? You kind of went into that.
What's a home service business?
Yeah, that's a good question. What, home service, or meaning like you actually do your business from home? So we'll get that's the clarity we need, Jazz. Mm-hmm. So is it Truth No TV, Blessings in Abundance? Thank you so much. And then is it Shira said, I'm gonna have to watch it again and take notes. I wish I'd have known this stuff 3 years ago. I've been trying to tell y'all, okay? I've been trying to tell y'all, get with Janelle. And look, I'm gonna say this now. I usually wait to the end of the video. Don't be calling Janelle unless you're ready. Like, I don't want to. She's not doing free consultations no more. I'm telling her, look, I know she's like my auntie, my mama. No more, because people, if you know you need it, buy it. Just like you need stuff at Walmart, you need stuff at Target, on Amazon. Y'all don't be questioning Amazon now 1 iota. If you know you need it, then do it. Period. Mm-hmm. Pay the money. This woman is an expert, and y'all just don't be wanting to pay. That just gets on my nerves. I'm tired of telling y'all every single time. Do not call her unless you are ready. Okay? I didn't say that last time. I'm saying it this time. Okay? Lord. Okay. So Nightway said, can you write off renovations to your home office? Say you add a window, closet space, or even HVAC, etc. That's a good question.
Yeah, you can. That gets into what we call the gray area. And a lot of our businesses work in the gray area, which means that it's, yeah, you can. But yeah, you can. Renovations to your home office, absolutely. Because you have documentation. Now, if you have your brother-in-law come over and help you out and do a little bit of something, that isn't going to work. Documentation. Have the brother-in-law come over and do the something, but have them actually draw up the paperwork, what it was and how much it costs. And then you pay him for that amount. And that's the amount. And that's the expense that you can use to write off. When you say write off, that's the expense you're using on your P&L. You enter it in your books. And now that's a deductible business expense for your business. Now, if it's a large renovation, that is not an expense, but it is a leasehold improvement,
Okay.
which goes on your balance sheet, and you have to depreciate it over a period of time. Okay. What is the difference? That means if you put in windows, I live in Florida, one window is about $3,500 for a storm window. Yes.
Whoa.
It's ridiculous. I know, because we're getting new windows, and I almost had a heart attack. So
I'm having
anyway,
a heart attack.
So those storm windows are expensive. That is a leasehold improvement, and it goes on your balance sheet. It does not go on your P&L. When you pay for it, it does not go there. Okay.
Wow. And if you think about it, we're all pretty we may not have had true interactions with the IRS, but we know the IRS can be scary, right? So if you're standing there on the red carpet, that's a military term. You're standing there on the red carpet and you got to answer to the IRS, and you're thinking I wonder if this was shady. Then don't do that thing. Just don't do that. Just stop. Don't try to get over. Don't try to find the loopholes. You're saying gray area, but it's gray area because every single situation can be different. But not gray like shady, not gray like illegal.
Right.
It's more of, if you know it's illegal and you know it's wrong, just don't do it, because you're going to have to answer. It may be 10 years from now. Y'all seen The Pursuit of Happiness? Okay. It come at the most inopportune time. The IRS will be like, boo, boo, boo. I know you don't have any money, but I'm taking even more than what you don't have. So just let's just do the right thing. Not to you, Nightwave, but I'm just saying in general. Just saying in general. So we answered Jazz's question. And Albury said, so much to learn here. I'm a hot mess when it comes to finances. Aren't we all? Aren't we all, except for Miss Janelle and her team? Okay. They're the ones that's doing it right. So Yolanda said, folks not serious. Don't be scheduled with Miss Janelle. I need her services and I'm ready. Okay. Thank you. Somebody willing and able, because I ain't trying to hear nope. I'm like, if y'all don't stop playing with Miss Janelle, I'm going to come to y'all's house for real. For real, for real. So Sparnell said the cost of the subscription for the accounting and a payroll system, is it tax deductible?
It is. They're both a business expense.
Got it. Okay.
Which is tax deductible. One thing that I noticed, people use tax deductible. So you're in business, it's a business expense. That's what you want to say. It's a business expense. And business expenses are tax deductible.
I like that. Business expense. Put that in the chat. Business expense. I love that. I love that. I love that. So he said he's taking notes. And then we have Chris in the building, also a huge supporter of the channel. So this is one of the things that it's like, I feel like I'm having an imaginary argument with people, because I've heard both things. Going on trips. Can my business, is it tax deductible, business expense? What the hell is it? Because I need to know. I go on at least 2 trips a year. And they said, if you just say the word business, then boom, the whole trip is free or tax deductible or business expense. Please help me.
That's not quite true. So,
gray area.
So the IRS looks at what type of business you have. So if your business doesn't typically have travel in it, they will question the travel expenses that are on your books. So that's number one. Number two, ideally, the correct way to handle your travel expense, and let's just say you're going on a cruise, and you know that I know that Sheena's going to be there. One day we're going to be talking about business. We got to go over a bunch of things. Well, I can use that one day as a deduction of business expense. So instead of the whole 7 days being booked as an expense to the business, I can carve out that one day as a business expense. That's the correct way to do it. 99.99999% of my clients take all of those 7 days. So what you have to remember, if you're going to be aggressive, I'm not going to say cheat, but if you're going to be aggressive in this situation, do some business each day. Talk to some people about your business. But you need to jot it down somewhere that you did that, because if you're ever audited, you want to be able to go to that little notebook and say, okay, on this day I was doing this, on this day I was doing that, etc. Or I sat in my room or I sat on the beach, whatever, but I took calls all day long from the office. That's all. You want to document what you've been doing. And you will hear me say this all the time. Documentation, documentation, documentation. Document it.
So we can do the 7 days on the beach as long as we conducting business and can prove it. So how successful are there any that they did everything quote unquote right? They did the 7-day cruise and they did talk about business. They had business friends with them and they went over some agendas and they wrote everything down. Have you seen any of those be unsuccessful?
So
nope. All right, well, we good.
So those that have the documentation and the books are clean. So it's two things, because we have clients where we've had to do, prepare them for an IRS audit. And as long as you're organized, all of your stuff makes sense. Your books are in order. They're clean. You have a notebook full of documents because you printed off everything for them. When they see that, they're like, oh, wow, well, this looks pretty good. You're more than likely that they will just kind of skim it and just kind of spot check. But if you come in there with a box full of papers and Post-it notes and all of that crap, they're going to look at every single thing.
It's just like going to court, or even like, let's just say cleaning, it's like if they find one spot dirty, now they're looking at everything instead of they're able to see that generally speaking, it's clean, then they probably won't be looking completely behind the curtain. So, okay, as long as you make it at least feel legit. I mean, because if you're a business owner, I don't know that many business owners, unless they've been doing this for like 50 years, that go on vacation and do not do any work. I don't really know any yet. They still might send a couple of emails here and there, and maybe they're not doing the same level of work, but most people still do something while they're on their vacation. So as long as you're documenting, we got free trips, y'all. Free trips. I love it. Let me not say that. I'm just joking. Don't do that. But that's good. Okay, so going into another question. Make sure y'all ask your questions, y'all, because look, I might not get her back on this channel. All right, because she's gonna be having all this money after y'all start paying her. Okay, she might not come back on the channel. She might be busy. So Nightway said, you mentioned having your phone bill as a business expense. Now, does your line you're using for business have to be labeled as a business account under that company, like say T-Mobile, Verizon? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. But no, it doesn't have to be, because at one time, years ago, and this is telling my age, years ago, you couldn't conduct business on a personal phone, cell phone. You couldn't answer your phone as Sheenapreneur, can I help you? You couldn't do that. Wow. I got caught one time. So I know this for a fact.
Wow.
And the telephone company called me up and told me I had to get a business line because I was conducting business on a personal cell phone.
Oh, there's some haters.
Years ago.
Was that MCI? Was that MCI back in the day? There's some haters. Who was that?
Verizon.
Oh, yeah. Well,
well, before it was Verizon, it was C&P Telephone Company.
Wow.
So it's way back. But now, no, that doesn't happen because cell phones that's just the norm now. I mean, most companies don't even have a landline business phone any longer. They have a cell phone that they use for business. and then
Right.
personal. You're supposed to have separate ones, but 90% of the people I know use their cell phone.
2 phones. I used to have them connected, but I used to get confused. So I'm like, nah, let me just, it's $10 a month. I can do $10 a month. So it ain't nothing. So Jazz O is asking, how are we to document van deduct? Do you know what that is? Van?
Document and deduct.
Oh, and my bad.
Okay, so when I say document, that means that luncheon that you had with Sheena in Atlanta, that receipt, when you took a picture of it, that's documenting it. So now you have a picture of it, and it can be entered into your QuickBooks accounting system as a business expense, which is deductible.
Okay. Is that time, date stamp. So another thing too, even going back to the trip, because I had one of those. So really, like, even the journal entry. So making sure people understand, if you were having a conversation about business, that journal entry with the date still counts as documenting it. Not journal entry. Let me not use the term journal entry. When I'm writing on my notebook with the date and time, and this is what we talked about, this is who was in the room. That's
exactly.
documented. Got it. Okay.
And you said something important. And who was in the room?
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Include that on that type of receipt. Got
it. Okay. So y'all heard that. All right. That don't mean going out and going everywhere, going to St. Martin for a week. So he said, like I did, minding my business to write off. He said, thank you for the information. It should be, because people don't be doing that. That's for sure. Make sure y'all hit like on the way in, please. And thank you. There's a lot of y'all in here, so I appreciate it. What are your thoughts on having an enrolled agent on your accounting team?
So for us personally, we stay in the lane of accounting, bookkeeping. That's it. We do not handle any taxes at all. That was an intentional decision that we made, that we wanted to narrow our focus and expertise in one area. And when a client is ready for a tax preparer, we refer them to someone in our network that we know. Yeah.
No, she mentioned that to me too. I was like, what? But again, riches in the niches. I mean, even for Janelle's company, it makes it a lot easier to not have to get into that. But then for you as a consumer, you want that person to be the expert in that thing. They don't want to, and there's so many people who are like, oh, I used to do taxes. I used to do so they just automatically think they're an accountant, which is beyond me. But I mean, I guess if you don't know, you don't know. If you've only done small business, but like the things that Janelle and her team have helped me understand, and I thought I knew a little something about some. I took accounting. I may have failed a few times, but I did take accounting. And I'm like, I thought I was a little further ahead than other people. But when it came to the government contracting stuff, well, you had us, me and my team separated by class and all that. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what this is, but all those things make it so much easier. When like we had like a almost like a contract audit with one of our contracts, and they had us go back 2 years for all the invoices, all the emails, because they were trying to figure out why we had a different price. And I was like, whoo, thank you, Jesus, that her team had us separated like that, because we have a contract with an agency that has multiple agencies under like 100 agencies. So to have all those, and it was separated right, instead of just saying this state department, it was like this state department dash, this particular building dash this particular building. It just saved me. It saved me. I don't think I told you that. That was like a saving grace. It didn't take that long.
Good.
So I didn't have to worry about it as much. So Michelle said, can you speak to the option to lease your home back for an employee event? Ooh.
So for something like this, I would get the average cost that you find out in the public to rent space that is a similar size of your home. So if you went to 3 different companies, you got bids and it said it was going to cost you $500, that was the average rate, then that's what you could use as the expense for that event at your home. So what does that mean? That means you can put on your books that you're charging you and your wife, you and your husband, or whatever, $500 for that event space. You see, your business can charge you personally for that space.
Oh, I see.
But you have to be able to support it, document it by having estimated bids that are already out there.
Got it. And that goes with any type of pricing, y'all. Like I always say, look at previous pricing, similar, like we don't have the answers to this stuff off the top of our head for every single thing under the sun. So it's really about finding similar pricing, similar space, similar contracts. That's always going to be the easiest answer. At least, and then, use a little common sense. I know common sense ain't common or whatever, but just think about it logically. Sometimes you have to use a different example in order to make it make sense. Government contracting is not the hard thing to learn. It's the business that you're trying to do that may be a little challenging to learn. The government's just like, hey, you do this, like provide it. Like Janelle and her team wouldn't have any problem providing accounting services to the government. This is what she does. There's no confusion. It's just like it's a different client. So anyway, soapbox moment. Just saying. So what are some of the records? And we talked about a little bit about the reports and records, but what are some of the records that or reports that people need to just kind of get ready for the end of the year? Is it the same P&L balance sheet, or are there other things that they just kind of need to have, like be able to press run? Well, if they're using QuickBooks, to have ready, and then why? Because I know the reasons. I'm thinking of why you would need them. But what are some of the other reasons you can think of?
So at the end of the year, you want to make sure you have everything, all of your expenses, all of your revenue captured in your accounting system. That's number one. Just make sure it's complete. It is not complete on December 31st. I'm telling you that right now. It is complete in mid-January, maybe the end of January, because you receive your bank statements for December in January.
True that.
Okay. So the easiest way, the way you keep your costs down when you go to a tax preparer is being organized. Being able to submit your financial reports, not only on an accrual basis of accounting, but on a cash basis, because your taxes are calculated on a cash basis.
Okay. And please help us understand the difference.
When cash basis means, so accrual, let's start with accrual. Everyone should be on accrual-based accounting for government contracting, because you invoicing and putting it on the books is accrual-based accounting.
Okay.
Invoicing it, because you're invoicing it, you're showing the sale, that it happened in August, but you're not getting the money into December, but you still have it recorded in August, because August is when you made that $500,000. Okay. So, so that's the cash, that's the accrual-based accounting. Now, for tax purposes, if you don't receive that $500,000 in August, September, October, November, or December, you receive it in January, on cash basis accounting, your taxes are not going to include that $500,000 because you didn't receive the cash yet. Cash basis is when you've received the cash and when you spent the cash. That's cash-based accounting.
Okay.
Accrual-based accounting, which every government contractor should be, is I did all these invoices and I'm not paying these contractors until I get paid, but I still got to enter their invoice in my accounts payable.
Okay, but nobody gets paid really until January. So I receive it, I get paid, and then I pay it out. So it does with that, because I always get this wrong. So do I go back, since I got it in January, am I recording the date that I actually got it for that August invoice, or am I supposed to Help me.
So you get your money, you invoice them in August, you put it in your QuickBooks system, you create that beautiful invoice and you sent it off. Okay.
500,000 is beautiful.
500,000 grand. And then Susie over here was the contractor on there, and she sent you an invoice for $300,000 that you had to pay her. Mm-hmm. So you're going to enter it in August, but you're not paying her until you get paid by the government.
Right.
So you wait, it doesn't get paid, it doesn't get paid. Okay, end of the year comes, we send our stuff to our taxes. Your tax accountant is going to ask you to send cash-based accounting. On your cash-based accounting report, it's not going to show that $500 invoice, and it's not going to show that $300,000 expense invoice either. It's not going to show that. It's only going to show the money that you actually got, because that's what you're going to be taxed on.
Got it. I got it. Yes. Okay. Amen. Because I was like, I was starting to get lost. Okay. The money that's actually physically there. Up an invoice.
The money that came into your bank account is what you're taxed on. And the money that went out are your deductions that can be counted on your taxes for that year. So when you get your payment in January, well, you're going into your QuickBooks account, you're paying off that invoice that was sitting out there since August with your January 15th date of receipt. Okay.
So that's counting for 2025. It's not counting for
exactly. That's
because
exactly
I mean, I guess it really, like, let's just say the government says we ain't got no money, right? You sent it in August, they said we ain't got no money. Then ideally, if you knew you were getting in January, you would just issue the invoice in January. So it doesn't matter necessarily when the invoice was sent. Well, no, let me not say that. It does matter. But I'm saying as far as like the actual money that's coming in, it being in August doesn't necessarily matter in respect to the actual cash that you're getting. Because if I was to send it January 1st, then I'm getting paid for that year because that's when the money is coming in. But I guess the only problem is if you send the invoice in August and you don't get paid all those months, then you have the accounts, what is
receivable.
it? Yeah, you have an issue with aging. That's what I was thinking.
Exactly. It'll show it old, that it's still outstanding.
Right. That's what I was trying to. I told you I failed accounting like 3 times, y'all. So this is always, it's like I understand money, but it's the accounting that gets me. So I do have a couple of.
So let me add something to this that we see a lot is that people hold the bills that they owe. It's like, man, I don't have the money yet. I'm not going to put this in the accounting system. I'm going to just leave this in my little inbox. That's wrong. Do not do that. You enter the invoices into the period that's on the invoice. If the invoice, I sent you a bill from Global for $1,000 in August. You don't have the money to pay me yet. It still gets entered into your accounting system in August. Enter it. Don't hold it.
I see. Okay.
It still needs to be accounted for that period. Because let's look at this example. Next year, you're looking at your books and you're like, man, what did I do in August? Man, I didn't have no bills in August. Oh, yes, you did.
Amen. Yes, you did.
You didn't put it in there. You got to put it in there. So it really interferes in your ability to run your business effectively, to manage your cash flow, because you might say, okay, what are the upcoming bills in August? Let me look and see what I did last year. And you look on there. Oh, great. I didn't have any bills coming in August. But you did. You just didn't put them in the system. So now here you are planning that, oh, I can spend this extra money because I know I don't have any bills in August because that's what happened last year. Nothing's changed.
Got it. It's really for the planning purposes, if nothing else. And that's what we're trying to do. We're all trying to scale, right? We're not just kind of like we're hopefully not trying to wing it. We're trying to scale and purposefully go after things that make sense, and then knowing how to plan for that. Because you definitely got on me, like, okay, what is, what did you say, the rate of everything, like all the different formulas that you use in order to calculate not just how much a contract should cost, but for your future opportunities that you're going after, like, are they even worth it? And a lot of people that are just getting into this business and they're like, I just want to win a contract, and a lot of them aren't making $1. They're paying the government to do the contract because they want to win a contract so bad. You might do that at the beginning, and then some people are like, look, I had to get in where I fit in. That's not scalable. That's not sustainable.
You're absolutely right. And a lot of people do that. And what ends up happening, they can't stay in business. So if they don't perform, and I always use this word, perform, you got to perform on the contract. What does that mean when you're a government agency, a core, or a person who is a contracting officer? They will, if you perform, and you perform consistently in a positive way, you will start getting offers to bid on contracts that are totally outside of your wheelhouse. We have contractors, government contractors who have worked with us that started off in one field, maybe IT, and now they're providing medical officers, nurses, lawyers, doctors, surgeons, all that sort of thing, because they performed. Why do they get those offers? Because you made the contracting officer look good.
Yep. They trust you.
And the contracting officer will tell their network of folks that, you know what? I gave Sheena this contract. Man, they did so great. The government agency, they loved her. We gave her another one. She performed. You guys got something. You need somebody to step in and take over a contract. She's the one. This does happen.
Yes, it's happened for us too. And I love, you see what she's doing? She's not just talking about accounting. This is business development. This is why she's so valuable, because some of these, look, I ran through 4 accountants in 1 year before I met Janelle, since when she was sent from the heavens to me. And it was just so transactional. And it's sometimes that's all you need, transactional, right? But they weren't even good. There was no suggestion, no, if I'm at the end of the year and I'm like, hey, I have all this extra, money, not to say you need to go and buy a Corvette, but just maybe you might want to think about this, or maybe this might be a good option. But even before that, Janelle and her team are talking to me every month, even if I'm hiding. They're like, nope, get on this schedule, because they want to make sure that you don't get to the end of the year and you're over here trying to figure out what you need to do. So that's a really important key factor. It's the business development. It's the listening to what the problems are to give a solution. Like, where else you going to find that? You're not going to find that anywhere else. I already ran through them all, okay? I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to save y'all. So
let me just jump in here. So if any of you have made a lot of money and you've just made so much money, and you're at this point right now and you're like, gosh, I'm going to be taxed on this profit of $200,000 that's sitting here, you need to start prepaying. And what do I mean by prepaying? Expenses that you're going to incur, like payroll, and you got a payroll on January 4th that you're going to have to pay it on December 31st. Because you got to pay it anyways.
That's that's literally what I have going on. Let me make a note of that.
Yes, you pay it ahead of time. You got rent that's due on January 1st for your office space. Pay it on December 31st.
That is a key.
And the IRS just changed this rule that you can pay it with your credit card.
What?
For the end of the year, and not have your credit card paid off for it to count.
Wow. That is a nugget. Somebody drop a diamond or something, a diamond, a gem, a jewel in the chat. That is stuff that I needed to know. Wow.
You're going to conferences in the summer next year, and they've already started selling the conference tickets. Buy it before December 31st, because you're going to do it anyways. You want to reduce that taxable income down.
That's so,
So it's
so,
on your
so
books as a prepayment. So it's not going to show up on your P&L for 2024.
golly. Y'all, man, y'all need to listen. She is dropping some ridiculous gems. Please drop some more gems in the chat because that is something that we all can do. We can do that today. We can all do that today. And that's so important. Everybody has to pay taxes no matter what. You can run, but you can't hide. So Jazz says, thank you so much. And then Kimberly said, oh, it's the hair, girl. It's the hair. It's the hair. Appreciate it. And shout out to Haja. This is my friend. Like, this is my old friend. Okay. We go so far back. So far back. Thank you so much for your support. Two times. Thank you so much for your support. And we have Spartan L said, should I have my wife and I on payroll? I mean, legitimately receiving a check with tax deduction, etc., and that's an expense, correct? I already know the answer.
Oh, that's a big yes. Are you an S corp? If you're an LLC, you need to select an S corp election so that you can be employees of your business. So check with your accountant, or if I'm your accountant, I will tell you. Our team can help you with that, but you want to be in an S corp so that you're in compliance with all of the tax regulations and so forth, so that you're on payroll. Yes, that is a good idea to do that because right now you're paying double tax.
If she told me that, I fell out.
Yep, you're taking owner's draws, that's a double taxation.
So keep that in mind. You're not getting away. You may not see it up front, but when you go to pay these taxes and you're like, "Ooh, at least I had enough money to pay it," you're not thinking about how much you could have actually saved. And that's one of the things you got to pre-plan and think through all this. It's painful. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it. And I know I got two businesses where I'm like, whoo, I don't want to think about it, but you have to. You have to, because then you're paying out. Your business can go out of business that quick because your books are wrong. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And everyone remembers COVID. I can't tell you how many people called us. They never got on payroll. They didn't have it. Their employees, they weren't on payroll, and they wanted to use their
for the PPP. And they ain't paid their employee, but like under the table for the last 25 years. Yeah. And it's like that. A lot of people are like, well, they only gave to, they gave to a lot of people they shouldn't have. But even with the idle, like even there's some scammers in that, but those of us who did the right thing, it's like I was already legit. So it was nothing to put in the information that was already there. And people were complaining that, well, I didn't get it because they only gave it to these types of businesses. No, they gave it to legit businesses, or, the ones who pretended to be legit businesses. But if you're out here and you're not keeping track of nothing, then what do you expect? How are you showing your proof that you're running this business? Okay. So Spartan said, what level of revenue should I have generated before purchasing an accounting system? We already talked about this. When working with an agency like DIBS, small contracts products.
The day you open up a bank account, you need to have your accounting system set up. As soon as you incur expenses, get an accounting system. Now, QuickBooks prices have gone up. They're expensive now. I mean, it's because they have a lock on the market. But what you can do is get a lower version of QuickBooks. So they have like all these different levels. You don't need to be at the top level paying $150 a month or something like that crazy. Go down to the lowest level and get that subscription where you're paying $40 a month or $30 a month, or for the first 3 months are only paying $15 or something like that. Get something that is just basic until you can afford to get something more robust. Now, remember this, that if you're going after government contracts, there is going to be a question at one time or another that asks you, do you have an accounting system? You cannot say Excel. I mean, I said this at the beginning. I cannot emphasize this enough, that question does come up, and you don't want to be caught flat-footed and disqualify yourself automatically from being able to participate in the RFP.
For something so simple that you need anyway. Again,
Right.
and you probably came in a little late, Spartan, but when we were talking about that earlier, you're not going to remember all these expenses. Trust me. I'm like $1,000. I'll never forget where that money goes. But when it's constant and there's multiple contracts coming in, multiple money being paid out in every aspect, payroll, contractors, expenses for contract, all kind of stuff going every which way. And you're talking about many contracts, you might be able to keep track of it when you're, I always use an example, and it's no disrespect, but like you're selling cups on Etsy, you'll be able to keep track of that. But really, if there's no other, if you don't track it some other way and you expect, especially QuickBooks, when it hasn't been set up properly, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, and you're going to get 6 months or even more months in. And you're like, how the hell did they calculate that this was this? I received a $10,000 grant, and it was calculated as a loan automatically by QuickBooks. I almost passed out. I'm like, where did they get this from? I didn't even, this is before I met Janelle, of course. So I'm like, how in the world, that's a significant difference. It's money that you don't need to pay back versus money you need to pay back. So just have it, and then consult an accountant. Even if it's, I don't know if you do onesie twosies, Janelle, where you're like, we'll just fix everything and then you go on your way. I'm not sure if you do that, but even if you consult, okay, so she does that. So you can say, okay, let me get it set up right with all the things I have going on now, and then decide later. I'm just trying to go with the budgeteers right now, but you really need to have that consistent financial conversation every month so you can plan for the future and see what you did.
That's exactly right, because some folks will come to us, I just need you to set me up. I'm not ready to pay a service yet. Just get me set up. So we understand what their business is, what they're doing, what their revenues look like, set it up for them, and tell them, listen, if you have a question, email me.
Wow.
Go on about your business, make your money. We'll be here when you're ready. But if you have a question, I'm not going to charge you to answer your question. Just email me the question, and I'll respond back and tell you, is this, or if I need to hop on a call, I'll ask you, hey, you got 5 minutes? I want to go over this real quick for you because I want to make sure you understand it. Because this is the way that I look at it. If we're successful as a group of folks, business people here, we can work with each other and help each other be successful.
Y'all heard that? She said she'll send you on your way after you get set up, and you can still ask a question. How many people out here are doing that? Nobody's doing that. And she's like the real deal. Like, some people say, oh, my cousin does hair. But your cousin really, they don't really do hair well. It's like, it's good enough because it's my cousin. She's the real deal. Like, her team is like, I'm telling you, second to none. I've had so many businesses. I have friends who I respected that make millions and millions of dollars who gave me their accountant, and I almost like threw up. They were terrible, horrible. And then they find out later that their accountant was trash. They're like, wow, I didn't even know, because everything goes to the accountant. They don't look, they don't think, they don't have the conversation. The end of the year, it's like, oh, okay, it must be okay, until it's not. So I'm telling you, she's the real deal. Her and her team just gotta, big you up because you are the best. So Hedda says, what's happened with BOI now? Before you answer that, I got to say something about it, but just heard we no longer have to report, and I've already done it for my businesses. Do you know people were paying to have someone, what? How in the world? That thing took me, for both of my businesses, less than 20 minutes. For both of my business. I didn't even know what I was doing for real. And people were paying $200, $300, $400, $500 to register their businesses. But yes, it's no longer, I guess, required. It's on pause. Do you know anything about it right now?
I didn't know that it was on pause. I hadn't heard that. But we do get people who call and ask us to pay us to set up their BOI. I tell them all no. I said, it literally will take you less than 10 minutes to do it. I said, I can't do that in good conscience and charge you for that.
Yeah.
It will take you 10 minutes, if that long. As accountants, it takes us maybe 4 or 5 minutes to do because we can zip right through. We know what we're doing. But for anybody else, 10 minutes, that's it. I would continue applying. If you haven't registered your business on BOI, I would go ahead and do that for now before end of the year, just so that yours is done, because there's a lot of changes coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
Not all good for our businesses, but we have to be ready for whatever comes up. And that's where you, as a business owner and entrepreneur, you always want to be prepared. And by being prepared, you put everything in place now. So when the ugly stuff happens, the bad stuff, the call from the IRS, the government wants to shut down, whatever, you're already prepared.
Yeah, that goes back to like during COVID. Luckily we were kind of a baby business anyway. So this is how I realized that I was fortunate in that, I guess, is because there were people that were in business for like 15, 20 years, even second generation businesses that they did stuff by hand and didn't really have a lot of good tracking systems using Excel. But because we were like born really, really, truly, my first contract was awarded in 2019. So this is 1 year, barely 1 year before COVID. So we were in the digital age. Of course, I was in IT, so it made sense. But still, we were already in it. We were already using G Suite and other types of softwares because that's just where it started. So it's like she's saying, if you just do it. And I know people have conspiracy theories about it or whatever, but they're saying this is the requirement. So if you want to get into all that, then you might as well just be a nomad off the grid somewhere, living in the woods, because there's really not a whole lot you can do about getting away from having a digital footprint or someone's trying to steal your data. All of our data has been stolen multiple times, probably. So get past that and just do what she said. Just register. So thank you for sharing that, because I was kind of like, they try to steal our identity. Let me go remove my businesses off if you can. But just do it.
But that is, the BOI was set up because of all the fraud from overseas. Yeah. It has nothing to do with trying to find, follow you around or get your inside information, because the information it can be found anywhere about your business, because that's that basic. Your address, your name, your tax ID number, that's it. There's really nothing else to it. So, but it was set up because the fraud is real. Now, how many of you all received those emails that you didn't sign a document? It says it's coming from DocuSign. Those are all spam emails that once you click on that button, they got you.
And you won't even know. You're like, oh, it says unable to load page. Oh, well, no, your data has been stolen at that moment. And you didn't even know. Right. Oh, that's the whole conversation. So yeah, I appreciate that. And there's things that I can see that some organizations are put into place. I know there was a big thing, just side note, like Instagram, where they were creating multiple fake pages. And so they put the Meta payment thing in place. So you don't really see that anymore. So, it seems like it's all a system to get us to pay for stuff or to register and stuff, but that's just where we are. Like, that's just the day and age. That's what we in. So Kimberly said, what's the name of Janelle's company, where to find her services? Boom. Okay. Global Strategy. I'm going to put it in the chat. Global Strategies. And your email it's accounting.
Janelle.
Okay.
JANELLE at globalstrategiesllc.net.
Strategies LLC. Globalstrategiesllc.net. All right, don't be emailing her with no BS now. I didn't told y'all. If you're not ready, don't be calling her saying, okay, watch this video in its entirety, because she's sharing so much information that you guys be asking anyway. Instead of saying, how do I get set up? Unless you got your card ready, or your bank account ready, Do not hit her line, okay? Lord have mercy. Oh, Stephanie's on the line. Look, Stephanie's the one that sent you to me. So you fell from the heavens to Stephanie and then glided over to me. What's up, Stephanie? I love it. I love it. Okay, so a couple more questions in here. So Charlotte says, I incorporated in Wyoming and live in California. Can I file my taxes in Wyoming?
Okay, so those are tax questions.
Got
I'm
it.
not a tax accountant. I can answer that question, but I defer to a tax preparer. So I'd rather for you, Charlotte, to get information directly from a tax preparer who understands tax law. I know enough to be dangerous. Let's put it that way. So I stay in my lane. I handle the accounting and the bookkeeping.
Fair. Totally fair. So I wanted to ask also, how do you feel about multiple bank accounts? I came to you like that, where you have the payroll account, the like savings account, the profit account, and it's mainly, from my understanding, stems from the book Profit First. So totally get. After you explained it to me, I was like, oh, okay. But I just wanted you to share with the people multiple bank accounts.
Okay, so multiple bank accounts will drive up your accounting fees. Bottom line, it'll cost you more. When we see clients come in with a whole bunch of bank accounts, we're like, if you reduce that down to 2, it'll reduce your costs significantly. So when people use multiple bank accounts, it's usually from that whole principle behind Profit First. And I'm not a fan of that way of accounting because it's using your bank account to do your accounting instead of using your accounting system to do your accounting. We have a client now who was a client of ours several years back, and she said, I heard about Profit First. I'm going with them. And at first, before she told me she was going with Profit First, she says, and I'm opening this account and this account for marketing and this account for payroll and this account for sales and this account for office expense. And I said, you do know your rates are going to go up in bookkeeping. That's all right. This is what I'm going to do. And then she left. And I said, okay. So now she's back because Profit First doesn't work. She says, my business has grown so much. I need an accountant that does accounting.
Not the bank account.
And I need you to reduce the bank accounts and let the accounting system do the accounting and not your bank account do the accounting.
That is so fair. I personally love the book. I think there might be other methods you can use to pay yourself first, outside of your salary. Yes. So, well, do you have some examples of that?
The basis of the multiple bank accounts is what I disagree with.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Some of the other, aspects of the book about paying yourself first. Yeah, you should pay yourself. Incorporate that, because when you don't include yourself in pay, it's easy to exclude yourself going forward.
So true.
But it doesn't have to be a whole lot, because one of the things that you want to make sure you understand too is that, hi Spartan, one of the things you want to make sure is that some government contracts, the proposals will ask, are you on payroll? That's to see what kind of business you are. Are you really set up to be a business, and are you a sustainable business that can pay yourself?
And I'll tell you, like, there's times, even I would say, especially at the local level, and when it comes to certifications, they'll ask you for your balance sheet and P&L, and something. I've been asked for payroll reports for my company, and so those things, they're probably not asking specifically, like, are you paying yourself? But they're looking at those reports to get that answer. So
that's exactly right.
You need to definitely have that readily available, and again, paying yourself, because when it came to those types of PPP and EIDL and all that stuff, you just want to be prepared, just like you said. So another question is, how do you handle carryover funds or unused contract funds at the end of the year? I think we talked about this in the other video, but it was fascinating.
Mhm. Yep, that's
What your thoughts were.
interesting. That's a good question because so the government is on an October through September, federal government, October through September fiscal year. And if you have a contract that goes over the fiscal year, so we're going to talk about the fiscal year, and you have not spent down on, and there's the term called CLIN, CLIN. It's a CLIN line. So your CLIN line is, for instance, you're going to provide painting for the exterior building in the right courtyard or something like that for $500,000. That's how much has been set aside on that CLIN line for you to do that job. You know, you have up to $500,000. So you got all these laborers and stuff like that. And now it's September or August, and there's still $100,000 left over. Your accountant should be coming to you and saying, hey, this contract is almost up. There is still $100,000 left on this. Can you get more work out there? Is there more work that needs to be done that you can get those people out there? Because you're leaving $100,000 on the table. Never leave that money on the table. What happens when it renews? They reduce the contract value because you didn't spend it all.
Yep.
Find a way to spend that money in compliance with the terms of the contract. Spend it. So, but that means being proactive and staying on top of how much you've spent on the contract, how much you billed to the government against that $500,000, so that you know when you don't have records, how are you going to remember that? And you got 3 other contracts. You got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. You got people in your company acting crazy, and you got to deal with those kind of issues too. How are you going to remember that? So if you have records, you can act on it. Use those records to help guide your business.
And to add to that, you know, everyone, I want $1 million contract. Okay, so let's say it's $1 million contract spread over 5 years. That's what, $200,000 a year, right? So she's saying, let's just say it's $50,000 that you're getting toward the end of the fiscal year, and you're like, okay, we don't even know where to spend this. Your contract is no longer $1 million contract because you haven't received $1 million spread over this 5-year time period. And so now it might even be further reduced. So the next year, now they're not giving you the $200,000, it's going to be less $50,000. And then let's just say something else happens and you can't use it because you live in Maine and it snowed, so you can't do the work or whatever the case may be. You got to remember, when there's so many people that are like, I want a $50 million contract, I want a $100 million contract. It could be a task order contract. It could be, you know, you're not, like she said, paying down or working through the contract in the time that they gave you that dollar amount because you weren't able, or you weren't tracking how much work was being done or not being done, I should say. And so that's no longer the amount of your money that you're earning. You're just looking at it as $1 million contract, but you're not actually getting $1 million in your bank account at any point in time. So
the other way to look at that too, what you can do, you get down to the end of the contract period where it ends September 30th. And you know that you're going to be spending, you still have the work hasn't been available. You couldn't get into the building because they were on a strike or something like that. I don't know what it is. They couldn't get it. You couldn't get in the building to do the work. But now on August 29th, the building opened up. Now you can go do the work. What you should be doing is speaking to that contracting officer, letting them know, can we get that money moved over to the next fiscal period and add it on to the next because we can go ahead and do that work now. You got to communicate to your contracting officer, let them know, because they don't know what's going on, but you can tell them, and then they can put in a modification so that you still have that money and you don't lose it. It's just moved over to the next fiscal year. That's all.
And I'm so glad that you reemphasize contracting officer, because just because you're talking to someone every day in that, I'm always going to use janitorial because that's the easiest thing for me to, understand, because that's what we do. But you might be talking to the facilities manager every day, and you may not have ever met the contracting officer. They might live in California and you're in Atlanta. And so just because you're talking to the guy in the building where you're working, that doesn't mean that's the person you need to talk to. The contracting officer. There's so many people who don't know who the contracting officer is. I get it. You haven't seen them. You don't talk to them. You're talking directly to someone in the facility where you're working. But you need to talk to the contracting officer when it comes to your money. That's the person you talk to when it comes to your money. You can't go to the facilities guy and say, hey, yeah, I was wondering about this, and this. And then the facilities guy, yeah, I'll talk to the contracting officer. No. You have this direct contract with the contracting officer. The contracting officer is the puppet master, putting these people together, and then you're connecting with the manager, if you will. So I'm glad you reemphasized that, because that's a big deal that people, I'm surprised they don't really get.
And their name is on the contract. The contract itself, it's on there. It's in the payment section of the payment terms. All of those contact folks, those folks are on there.
Yes.
With their email addresses, with their phone numbers. Email them.
And sometimes you can call them, like not all of them. They'll let you know. They'll let you know if you can call them or can't call them. Some of them really like that. Some of them really even text. I mean, we're in a digital age, right? For me, I prefer email and text so I can prove what the hell you said. That's just me. But, sometimes you're working with older people, like some of these old contracting officers, they like to pick up the phone and call. That's fine. But I always follow it up with an email per our conversation, just to have it on record. And for you to remember, like with me, I run multiple contracts at once. I had to physically be in one building to manage that, but then I also had contracts in other places. I can't remember every damn thing that everybody said, and it might be detrimental to this contract for me to remember. And I still don't remember. So those who are just starting out, I know it can be a little confusing. Like, who do I talk to? What do I do? But the contracting officer doesn't want to look bad.
That's right.
Communicate with them. They're going to expect you to do your job. Now, if you come to them like, I don't know what to do, then you're in trouble. But if you come to them and say, okay, this part is unclear, or this part is just straight up wrong. I've had a contract where it was just wrong, and I was 2 subcontractors down. I'm like, none of y'all dimwits figure this out. Like, this is actually illegal. Like, I was in IT, this is illegal. And they're like, oh, you're right. Let's change that. So I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. But, communicating directly with them to make sure that everybody's on the same page, nobody lose money, nobody lose sleep, and nobody looks bad and, provides for the client. Just saying that. So shout out to Dr. Jeffrey Person, also always a supporter of the channel. Thank you so much. Good evening. Just stopping by to say hello. Truly appreciate the channel and the wealth of information you bring to us. Yeah, you're welcome. Janelle's the GOAT, y'all. She is the GOAT. So thank her, okay? Thank her. So we are about 12 minutes out, and I only have a couple more questions. So you guys ask your last questions before she got to get out of here, because it's getting late, and it is already dark here. Been dark out here in Atlanta. So as far as like winning contracts, is there anything, we talked about improving your probability of getting a bank loan a little bit. We touched on that very, very briefly, to make sure that your reports are right, your books are right, and usually bankers and others can tell when it ain't right. So is there any advice you can give to improve your chances to winning a contract?
Okay, so winning a contract. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to step back a little bit. For going to the bank, another thing that you need to have that will increase your chances of getting a funding is to have a backlog report.
Backlog.
Yes. It's called a backlog report, or it's called a waterfall report, but mostly it's called a backlog report. What is a backlog report? It lists every one of your contracts, and your contracts are multiple years. So it'll also have, each column will be the year in which you have how much you're going to be awarded for that contract. So it might be 100,000 in 2024, 200,000 in 2025, 2027. All of your contracts are in one place. And then you also, at the bottom, you have the contracts in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So, and then you have an assurance rate, meaning I'm about 70% sure that I'm going to get this contract. And you put that on there. And then you have a total, so they can see how much money is in the pipeline, what is definite, what is going to happen over the next 5-10 years. That is a backlog report, and that is a powerful report.
I've used it.
And it shows the banker or the financial institution, okay, this is a good bet. They got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff that's already committed, signed, and contracts signed, multi-year contracts, and then they got a pipeline.
It's impressive. It's impressive. And then think about it. If someone comes to you and says, yes, this is what I have, and it's broken down by a year, and this is what we've been working on, you know, broken down by amount and the percentage. Yeah, we might get this one, but because we're out of state, and you know, being able to explain it and just being able to flow through what you have going on inside of your business. Just think about how that sounds when you're presenting to anyone, even if you're trying to do a partnership. Not to say you need to divulge all your information to, let's say, a competitor, but just think about how that sounds when you're able to just explain everything about your business for someone to want to give you money or to do business with you. I mean, you would appreciate something like that coming to you if you're already in business, right?
Exactly.
So this is I don't know if this is like a joke. I'm not trying to laugh, but what if your credit is 480? Now I'm going to give my answer after you give your answer.
So is your question, if your credit is 480 and you want to get funding, if that's your question, then you got to work on raising your score.
That was a very nice answer. Get out of them people face with a 480 credit. Let me stop. Look, the thing is, right? I'm just joking. I'm joking. So with a 480, and I don't know if this is a joke again, but you know, we can all build our credit back up. That's one of the most forgiving things we can do. You can fix your credit pretty easily, and there are thousands of people on the internet that teach you how to do it, even if you want to do it yourself, right? But really and truly, your credit doesn't really affect government contracting all the time. All the time. You can get a contract and no one's checked your credit. That's a fact. But if you're talking about scaling, building, getting any type of funding, that it's going to be a no. It's going to be a no, even if you have a 700 or sometimes even an 800 credit score. So there's so many factors that go with that. So if you want to elaborate on that question, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. But really, it's, you know, if you're just going to go out here, I don't want to say just because it's not just, but you're selling office supplies and you're able to get your supplier to, you know, give you, even if you're doing a supplier credit, they may want to check your credit or maybe not, because you might start off super small or, you know, something like that. So it really depends. Your credit may not be a factor at all, but you know,
so when it is a factor, you want a contract, and the contract is you do event planning, and you got to do this event in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be for 20,000 people or so. So you got to rent all the different equipment, all that kind of stuff. You got to fly up. You got to do a whole bunch of stuff. You got to hire at least 100 waiters to be up there. Now, you are not going to get paid for that in advance.
Right.
You got to float that money. So you got to pay them. The government pays in 30 days. Now you can accelerate the payment by putting an acceleration request because you're a small business. It doesn't always work. That's just the way it is. And a lot of times it doesn't. So you have 30 days out before you could even get it. Now that's if your invoice is correct. So
Yes,
you
Lord.
decided you're not getting an accountant and you're just going to send the invoice in Excel to them, but they want it faxed, not emailed. They want it faxed. That's in your contract. Those terms like that are in your contract, and you have to read those terms so
Yes,
that
you do.
you're submitting the invoice the right way. So you want this contract, but you got to pay these people. Do you think all 100 people are going to say, you know what, I'll wait for the 30 days, 40 days for you to pay me?
Gross.
Because they can go and complain to the venue. The venue will tell whoever they know up the ladder, and it eventually get to your contracting officer that you didn't pay your employees.
And it's a wrap. It's a
And
wrap.
that's the end of your contract. So the 480, how that comes into play, you got to get a loan so that you can pay those people until you can get that money. Now you can do other things too, in terms of factoring, that sort of thing, but you have to get money somewhere to pay those people. And so the better rates that you get on money you're borrowing is tied directly to your credit score.
And even with the right, yeah, and even with factoring, it's a rigorous process. And if you're brand new, you have no, because I think there's some companies go off your business credit. You have to show some activity of business credit, even if it's small. So if you're starting off, if you're like that, then you probably haven't even explored business credit. You know, there's so many things that mean things. Like if you're, and this is again, look, I didn't have my credit score under 400. All right, you know how real I am. Back in those struggle days, it was bad. So you know, if your credit is like that, then you probably haven't been working on it. You probably haven't gone after business credit. There's so many other things that go into this. And then you might need to do something else to build up, maybe like your cash flow, where you're like bump credit. I'm gonna just save my money because I got a job. And then when I win this contract in 5 years, then I'll just have the cash on hand. Who knows? Like there's so many things that go with this, and you can do it differently. You mentioned accelerator payment. So have you dealt or helped people with equitable adjustments?
Equitable adjustments. I'm not familiar with that term.
So that came about a lot during COVID, where people want a contract, but because not necessarily because of COVID, but because of the wage raises, because they say you're supposed to predict wage raises within a certain period of time.
Yep.
But there's been raises, probably 3 raises in the last 4 years, which that's never happened in over 50 years in history. So most of the time people will ask for an equitable adjustment in their contract based on a significant event in the country, like something happened. And so now you need to give me more money on this contract, even if it's a firm fixed. So it sounded very similar to what you said about the accelerator payment, where you can try, but it probably won't happen. They kind of give that same result for equitable adjustment because you're supposed to predict, and you can't do a lot with firm fixed pricing. So
the challenge there is something has had to already have happened.
Well, I'm on the contract. It's year 2. Everything's Gucci. And then the government, everything changes in the government, like nothing related directly to the contract, but it's affecting me. And I couldn't have never predicted that this would be an issue when I originally bid on the contract, like COVID, raises. Yeah, that.
Yeah. So that's what I meant. Some event transpired that's putting you in the position that you need to renegotiate. You can go back to the contracting officer for that. And that has been done, especially in disaster relief areas where there are these natural disasters. Nobody predicts that. And then all of a sudden, the cost of materials is substantially more. So you go back to the government and you can request that. That's where having that relationship with your contracting officer is really important. you can always, when you get awarded a contract, the first thing you should do is reach out to the contracting officer and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Develop that relationship. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm going to perform. If there's anything you need, here's my direct number. Building that relationship. And then your performance speaks for itself.
It does. They notice because they're like, how the contract going? Yep. You know, there's then some are a lot more involved than others. I've had some where they were all the way, hands was all the way in. They want every meeting, they talk to all the subs, even the employees all the way down. So that is important because, you know, like, and trust, period. That's what it is. And they can recommend you. And some of them want to help you. They want to, like she said earlier, they want to get people who they like. And then, for lack of a better term, pass them on to their other friends to give them more work because they're in the business of helping small businesses too. A lot of them, most of them really are. You know, but you gotta be legit. You gotta do what you say you're gonna do. And sometimes people be asking contracting officers 50,000 questions about regular contracting stuff. And some of them want to teach you, but some of them are like, I don't have time to teach you how to be, a business owner. You know, so you need to have that. But if there's a question specifically related to this contract, then yes, I'm here for it.
That's exactly right. I've seen government contractors start off with a $20,000 contract and now have contracts total revenues of about 150 million a year. So they've grown from that from here all the way up to here. I have seen it. And, you know, it is a possibility, but you have to have your infrastructure in place. You have to have your accounting in place to be able to manage all of that information that you need to run your business and run it correctly, run it profitably. And that's what's important with having your accounting system.
No, I love that. I love that. So I want to just give a couple more shout outs to those who have supported the channel. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for the love. We appreciate it. She was dropping some serious gems. So this is your last call for alcohol. To ask any last questions. Like I said, don't be calling her asking questions like, how do I get set up? Just how do I get set up with the credit card in your hand or the bank information in your hand? That's the only way, because she's busy. She's a business owner too, and she got stuff to do, and she got to help me with my stuff because I need help. I definitely need help. So can you tell us your business again, just kind of, and what your offering is to everybody who's still on? Because there's still a lot of y'all on here, so y'all must really like this topic.
So again, the name of our company is Global Strategies LLC, your virtual bookkeeper. We've been in business almost 15 years. We have 14 accountants on our team. They're all over the United States. They all come with a lot of expertise and credentials to help support our clients. We believe in customizing our services to the client. We do require a meeting with all of our clients. And if you miss the meeting, you do get a call and email. I will even reach out to you and text you and say, hey, let's have a meeting real quick. I'm looking at your financial statements. I don't sit on every meeting, but a lot of the government contractors and nonprofits, because that's my passion there, I will look at their financials, and because I know they can be successful. I know they can. And if I can provide just a little bit of advice to help steer them in that right direction or connect them with resources that I know of, I will do that, as well as my team. I got a dynamic team that really is extremely responsive. You call, we pick up the phone. You email, we respond. So we want to see you successful, and we want to be that go-to team member on your team to be able to help give you the answers you need, the direction you need, the advice you need.
She's serious, y'all. Like, she'll be like, hey, you didn't, where is this information? So your books could be right. Hey, what's going on with this? We need to fix it. Let's schedule a call for tomorrow for 15 minutes. And I usually be like, Janelle, help. And she's like, we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this. She's like the mama bear accountant, okay? Like, really, truly cares. And I'm not just saying this because y'all know if someone's not righteous, they're not on my team. But I
Mhm.
really, as long as she's in business,
Mhm.
like everyone that I use, the person that does my nails, the person that does my pedicure, like I don't care if you're doing it in the alley. I'm following you forever as long as you still doing business. We together, okay? So I want to make sure that y'all understand who y'all dealing with. I love it, love it, love it. So we got a couple of last questions or a couple of last statements, I should say, and then we're out of here. This message will increase my efficiency. Okay, I love that. Yolanda said, Miss Janelle just sent you an email. Thank you. Very informative, and thank you for sharing. April says, very tough question here. What would we do if we have businesses on both sides of the border, US and Canada? I am a dual citizen and my partner and I are opening on both sides.
So if you have business on both sides, so you have to stay compliant with GAAP on US side. And then Canada has, I think they're using international accounting standards. So you need to make sure that your books are set up in compliance with whatever federal authorities of where your business is located. So you want to make sure your accountant understands the difference. There are a lot of tax laws in Canada. The person you hire has to be familiar with all of the laws that are required there. And there are a lot of them. So just be mindful of that.
So I'm assuming you don't work with Canadian companies.
We do. We work with a lot of internet companies that have international operations all over the world. Africa, London, Germany, South America, Costa Rica, all of those different places. So when we get a client that has that's in an area that we haven't worked with, we will learn it. We'll go learn and figure it out and make sure that the client is taken care of. There's a lot more to unpack in this particular question. And also the type of business you're in is going to kind of dictate a lot of your infrastructure as well. Who is the partner in Canada Canadian, or are you a partner as a US citizen too? So I would recommend that you have a tax person, because this has significant tax implications for you and your partner, and you just want to do it right. That's all.
And if I remember correctly, April is Native American, and we never had that conversation. April, send me a message, okay? Send me a message, okay? Put it in the comments or something to with your email address. Rajani, shout out to Rajani, always providing quality guests. Thank you, ma'am. And Yolanda showing out. Thank you so much. I wish I need to get one of those soundboards where you could just be like, but y'all get the idea. Thank you so much, Yolanda. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully you become a client, Ms. Janelle, and you understand why I love her so much. You'll understand because she is really, really the truth. Thank you so much for the super chat. Christy says, thank you, Sheena, for introducing us to Ms. Janelle and for assuring our businesses will have appropriate bookkeeping services in 2025. That sounds like a Chat GPT answer, Christy. Christy don't talk like that. Just kidding. Love you, Christy. April said, we are dual citizens and on a reservation. I knew it. Girl, send me your email address. Send me your email address, okay? You sent an email before? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Look, send it again. I won't miss it this time. So she said, thank you so much. So contact Ms. Janelle. She sent her information. We put it up here. It's going to be in the description. So you can reach out to her because she just said she's willing to help you out. So that'll be fun to learn. And then shout out to Jerome, also a support of the channel. And last, very informative live session. Thank you. We got one more. Hold on. Strongface said, thank you for the gems. Does contracting officers normally base awards of if can call? I believe some numbers were registered as scam likely. Base awards on a call. I'm not understanding the question. I'm sorry. Sheena, good information. Thanks for always focusing on the important parts of the business that other channels don't talk about. You're welcome. Look, say that again. Say that again and share this video after. Okay, appreciate it. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Again, I'm just gonna highlight a couple of people. Thank you, Nightway. Thank you, Haja, 2 times. Thank you, Dr. Person, and especially thank you, Miss Yolanda, for the super chats. And thank you all for staying with us for all this time. And we went over 2 hours, and I know she got to drink her water. So, Miss Janelle, please stay on, okay? Thank you guys again. You can always ask questions. This is something that people were asking me. You can always still ask questions in the comments, because this is like the live comment section, but then there's a regular comment section. So you can still ask questions in the comments, and, you know, reach out to her again, as long as you got the money ready. Or if you have questions even for me, you can put them in the comments. So Miss Janelle, stay on. But for the rest of y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, watch the replay if you came in late. So until next time, it's your favorite veteran. Peace out.
Thank you. Bye-bye.